This is the story of a male orangutan named Sibu who rewrote the rules of instinct for the purest of reasons, a profound need to nurture. Sibu was not prepared by nature to be a father, least of all to a litter of tiger cubs. But in the quiet corners of a South Carolina sanctuary, Sibu's heart was asking a question that transcended biology. What is the true measure of a parent? It's a challenge to our most basic understanding of animal behavior, a powerful testament to empathy. And here, in this unusual family, we find the core truth. Sometimes, love has no species. If you're already enjoying this story, a quick like and share makes all the difference. Let us know in the comments where you're listening from today. The International Wildlife Park in South Carolina is a place where the lines between the wild and the sanctuary blur, where animals from dramatically different backgrounds often find themselves neighbors. It was here that Sibu, a large, thoughtful Sumatran orangutan, lived a life of quiet observation. Sibu's life had been marked by human interaction since he was very young. He had spent years watching his human caregivers, the trainers and the staff, attend to the park's younger residents. He was, in effect, a student of human nurturing, taking mental notes on compassion and care long before he was ever asked to apply them. Orangutans are already among the most intelligent primates, capable of abstract thought, complex tool use, and deep emotional bonds. Sibu, perhaps more than others, had developed a profound understanding of his world, one shaped not just by instinct, but by the social cues he absorbed. He watched the subtle ways the park staff cared for animals who were too vulnerable or too young to survive on their own. This background of observation would prove to be the critical precondition for the extraordinary events that followed. The park staff were often presented with animals in desperate need of a second chance. One spring, that need arrived in the form of two tiny, blind, and critically vulnerable Bengal tiger cubs. Their mother, for reasons unknown, had rejected them. In the wild, this is a death sentence. In the sanctuary, it was a moment of panic and intense logistical planning. A specialized incubator and round-the-clock feedings were immediately implemented. But beyond the clinical care, the cubs lacked something far more essential: the constant, tactile warmth and social connection of a parent. No amount of medical technology can replace the psychological comfort of a steady, loving presence. It was a void that the humans, with their schedules and other duties, simply couldn't fill entirely. It was during this time that Sibu, in his nearby enclosure, began showing an unusual level of curiosity. He would sit, silent and intensely focused, watching the cubs in the nursery area. He could see their tiny movements, hear their high-pitched, distressed cries. Something shifted in the orangutan's large, gentle frame, a primordial impulse awakening refined by years of subtle mimicry. The stage was now set for an impossible proposition. The idea was audacious, born of desperation and the sheer observation of Sibu's gentle temperament. Could this powerful adult male ape be the surrogate parent the cubs needed? It defied every rule of species interaction and every warning about the predatory nature of a growing tiger. Yet the staff made a calculated risk. They designed a secure, supervised way for Sibu to interact with the cubs, relying on his intelligence and documented history of non-aggression. The first introduction was a moment of profound tension. Sibu was calm, extending a massive, deliberate hand toward the tiny, squirming cub. All eyes were fixed on the critical point of contact, the moment instinct either asserted itself or was utterly transcended. There was no hesitation, no aggression, only a soft, curious touch. Sibu didn't see prey, he saw vulnerability. He picked up the first cub with an astonishing tenderness, cradling the small body to his chest with the practiced ease of a mother or a seasoned human caregiver. It was a quiet, powerful confirmation. Sibu had chosen to disregard the predator in the cage and instead honor the need for comfort. The simian babysitter had been appointed not by biology, but by a conscious, empathetic choice. With trust established, the experiment moved from a tense observation to an enriching routine. Sibu became a constant, enveloping presence in the cubs' young lives. He was the ideal surrogate father, large enough to provide warmth and security, yet gentle enough to manage their fragile state. He would cradle them in the crook of his arm, their tiny, striped bodies nestled against his thick, comforting fur. He was tireless, never showing the exhaustion that human caregivers often feel during round-the-clock newborn care. His care went beyond simple cuddling. The cubs needed stimulation, cleaning, and assistance with movement as they grew from helpless newborns to clumsy toddlers. Sibu, with his prehensile hands and enormous dexterity, was perfectly suited to the task. He would gently groom their fur with his lips and fingers, mimicking the actions of a large, affectionate cat mother. He learned to lift them with just the right amount of pressure, carrying them like precious cargo as he moved around their space. The orangutan's large fingers, so capable of manipulating tools, were now used to manage the fragile lives of two apex predators. Staff noted the uncanny accuracy of his nurturing. When the cubs would fuss or cry, Sibu would immediately respond with soft, deep cooing sounds, a comforting, low-frequency vocalization that appeared to calm their innate distress. It was a language of pure empathy, one that bypassed species barriers and connected directly to the primal need for reassurance. He was teaching them the most important, early life lessons: trust, safety, and the comfort of touch. The sight was extraordinary. A powerful primate dedicated to raising the young of a species that would, by all natural laws, one day become his equal in strength and his superior in predatory instinct. Sibu's bond wasn't just physical. It was observational parenting distilled to its most fundamental form. He wasn't relying on orangutan instinct. He was relying on the idea of good parenting, drawn from years of watching humans care for the vulnerable. He had seen that love and patience were the tools that truly mattered, and he used them masterfully. This period was the silent, steady forging of a profound relationship, one built on the innocence of the cubs and the immense, quiet capacity for love held within the orangutan. Sibu's commitment redefined the boundaries of fatherhood, proving that care is a learned, conscious action as much as an inherent drive. As the weeks turned into months, the adorable, fuzzy vulnerability of the cubs began to give way to the unmistakable presence of predators. Their bodies lengthened, their paws grew disproportionately large, and their playful batting transformed into instinctual pounces. This period became the proving ground for Sibu's dedication, forcing him to navigate the rising conflict between nurture and nature. The cubs were growing stronger and heavier, and their games were becoming rougher. Sibu, with his innate wisdom, seemed to sense the change immediately. He adjusted his demeanor, moving from the purely nurturing parental figure to a more disciplined, patient mentor. He learned to gently redirect their sharper, more aggressive play. If a cub's pounce became too hard, Sibu would let out a soft, deep woof, a low-frequency sound of disapproval, and momentarily withdraw his attention. This soft consequence was enough to curb the behavior, a testament to how deeply the cubs had internalized the need for Sibu's approval. They recognized his care as the anchor of their world. The staff, however, remained acutely aware of the ticking clock. A 200-pound orangutan is an immensely powerful creature, but a rapidly growing tiger cub, even in play, possessed the innate weapons of a hunter. There was a constant, unspoken tension in the sanctuary. How long could Sibu's protective presence override millions of years of evolutionary programming in the cubs? He was teaching them social skills, confidence, and comfort, but he could not teach them not to be tigers. There were moments of genuine, heart-stopping concern. As the cubs began to chew on everything, Sibu patiently allowed them to mouth his thick fingers, enduring the sharp pinpricks of emerging canines. He was modeling patience and restraint, a vital lesson for any predator, but it was a risk. Every gentle touch from Sibu was a deliberate act of trust, a wager against the inherent danger of his adopted children. His dedication was not blind. It was an informed choice to risk his own comfort for the emotional well-being of his young wards. He knew the potential outcome, yet he continued to cradle them, to groom them, and to provide the sense of sanctuary that only a parent can offer. This sustained act of devotion became the living, breathing proof that the deepest bonds are often the most fragile and the most beautifully defiant. The inevitable arrived with the weight of nature's authority. The tiger cubs, now fully capable of predatory movement and armed with powerful claws and teeth, were approaching an age when instinct takes irreversible hold. They were no longer tiny, dependent charges. They were young tigers. The profound bond forged in their infancy now stood at a dangerous crossroads, and the sanctuary staff knew they had to make the hardest decision, the necessary separation. This climax was not one of violence, but of silent, overwhelming grief. It was an exercise in pure love, knowing when to let go for the safety of both the caregiver and the cared for. The day of the separation was marked by a quiet tension, a farewell done with respect and profound sadness. Sibu observed the keepers preparing the new, larger enclosure for the cubs, a space where they could begin their necessary transition into becoming self-reliant predators. When the moment came to physically divide the family, Sibu did not resist. He watched as the cubs, confused and calling out for their familiar, comforting presence, were moved. His reaction was a raw display of emotional intelligence. He did not panic or lash out, but retreated to a high point in his enclosure, looking out over the space where he had spent months nurturing his adopted children. He sat, still and silent, a large, thoughtful figure, consumed by a palpable, quiet sorrow. For days, Sibu was subdued. He would sit by the barrier, staring toward the direction of the cubs' new home. The cubs, too, showed signs of deep distress, their familiar calls now sounding less like a request for comfort and more like a search for their lost anchor. This was the cost of a profound cross-species bond, a shared, undeniable heartbreak. Their story reminds us that love does not exempt us from loss, but gives the loss its deep, meaningful weight. Years later, the memory of Sibu and the tiger cubs remains one of the sanctuary's most enduring and hopeful narratives. The tiger cubs matured successfully, socialized, and ready for their next phase, carrying within them the subtle, indelible lessons of their giant, gentle father. What Sibu taught them was not how to hunt or how to fear, but how to trust, how to be patient, and how to accept unconditional comfort. These are the bedrock emotional skills that allowed them to thrive. The legacy of Sibu's actions goes far beyond the boundaries of his enclosure. It offers a profound counter-argument to the biological determinism that often defines our understanding of the animal kingdom. Sibu's story is a compelling testament to the power of learned behavior, proof that the capacity for empathy and care can be cultivated even across the deepest species divide. It wasn't an instinct Sibu was born with, but a choice he made, a conscious, repeated act of selfless love modeled on the best of human compassion. His example stands as a powerful, silent fable for us all, that true family is not always written in genetics, but is often forged in the simple, deliberate act of showing up for the vulnerable. The instinctive story of the simian babysitter reminds us that the greatest acts of creation are often found in the courage to nurture what the world tells us we should fear. When we look at Sibu, we are looking into the heart of a creature that chose love over biological mandate, compassion over caution. His silent, unwavering dedication to two orphaned predators reveals a universal truth. The instinct to care is perhaps the most powerful and enduring force in the natural world. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this story moved you, please consider liking and subscribing. It truly helps us bring more stories like this to light. We have a question for you. What was the single moment in this story that resonated with you the most? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one.